Hey, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. This is Darren with Komprise. I'm here with Steve and Tim, a couple of gurus in the industry. I'm going to just, let's say hi to everybody. Let's put us on the screen. Hey, guys. Hey, Steve. Hey, Tim. How you guys doing?
Hey, good morning.
How you doing?
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. I'm excited about the conversation we're about to have. So let's jump right in. The topic today is how to save on file storage costs with Azure and Komprise. And this kind of started out, Tim. We've been partnering with you guys for a while. We'll talk a bit about the partnership today, but we started having a conversation about why we're seeing such demand right now for file storage, in particular in the cloud. The cloud storage trends. So I thought it'd be great just to have that conversation. Then we can go into the new solution, the Komprise Intelligent Tiering for Azure, and spend quite a bit of time in the demo. But let's just talk about that, Tim. Like, some of the points you made I thought were really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tim Kressler. I'm a product manager from Microsoft. I've been here for about a year, but I've been in storage for pretty much my entire career at a bunch of different companies. When we talk about why cloud storage and why it's important now, we really think of it as falling into three buckets. There's a lot of times customers are really just focused on cost avoidance, right? How do I keep from expanding this array? How do I find a different way to put backup data somewhere so that I don't have to buy a new backup array or a new backup solution? So there's a lot of those kinds of thought processes. The next is kind of using your data to get value out of it. And so this is all around big data, artificial intelligence, ML workloads, bringing data from our on-premises systems, from our on-premises storage environments, and using that data to train AI, to mine the data for logging information, to do a bunch of different things, and then to take advantage of those services that are built inside of Azure to help facilitate this. But so much of that conversation from our customers' perspective comes from needing the ability to know what data should be moved up and when it should be moved up and where it should be stored and things like that. So it's really an area it's full of interesting decisions that are being made. It's full of interesting and exciting technological advances, and it's a space where we expect kind of a lot of growth and a lot of the very exciting progress to be made over the next few years.
Well, and you mentioned growth, so I just wanted to include this quote here on the slide from Gartner. By 2026, large enterprises will triple their unstructured data capacity across their on-prem, edge, public cloud locations compared to 2023. Mm-hmm. So, in addition to everything you've talked about, cost avoidance, rationalization, this kind of, we're all talking about AI and getting more value from data. There's sort of a tipping point also where you can't just keep doing what you've been doing and expect different results. Do you have that conversation with customers looking at Azure for the first time? And it's actually, maybe you can tee up the overall Azure storage options as you're talking about this. But yeah, absolutely. What does that conversation look like when you're talking to people really going down this path for the first time?
Yeah, we have that conversation very frequently for customers. In the world of on-prem storage, you buy based on the performance that you think you're going to need, and you buy as much as you think you're going to need over the next few years. And you kind of cross your fingers and hope, right? As customers are moving data to the cloud, they want to take advantage of cloud economics. And that means storing data at the right tier for that data, making sure that it's accessible, but also making sure that you're not paying more to store it than you need to pay to store it. And then also, making sure that you're right sizing your storage deployment and taking advantage of the data that you're paying to store, right? If I'm going to pay to store it, then I want to use that data, make effective use of it. From Azure's perspective, the storage portfolio is really designed to be very durable, highly available, and just gigantically scalable, right? So we offer all three of the same cloud storage paradigms that all of the other clouds do. So we have block storage for storage area networks and SANs and things like that. We have object storage, which is kind of the cornerstone of cloud storage. It's the storage that everybody thinks of when they think of cloud storage. And then we have file storage. And our goal here is to meet the needs of our customers and to kind of, make sure that the underpinnings of the services that customers want to deploy and use in the cloud are rock solid and stable. And one of the most important underpinnings of any application, of any cloud service is the storage that it's run on. We bring unique capabilities to every one of these platforms, just like our competitors do as well. And I think in another meeting, in another time, I'm happy to dive deeper into what those capabilities are. But from that perspective, I just want our customers and your customers to know that whatever the storage need is in the cloud, we're going to bring it, and it'll be extra high quality, and you'll be able to take advantage of it very effectively.
Fantastic. So you guys, and I want to make sure my slides are appearing well. And I know folks on the screen can also maximize the screen in the BrightTalk interface. Also asking some questions along the way. But thanks for the overview of the overall Azure storage options. There's so much there to dig into. But one of the things I thought was really interesting about what you did at Microsoft was you introduced something called the Azure Migration Program. Can you talk about where that came from and what that is?
Yeah, absolutely, I can. Can you guys hear me okay? My headphones just rebooted without me really realizing.
Yeah, you sound smooth, silky smooth.
Okay, so the Azure Storage Migration Program, or the Azure File Migration Program, you'll hear it talked about in multiple ways, is really a way for us to help customers move their data onto Azure with a very minimum of disruption. So we don't have, and we have a few basic utilities for data migration onto Azure, but really we're just kind of in the process of fleshing out those first party offerings. And so what we did is we went to our partners, Komprise being one of the best, and said, hey, can we pay you to help our customers move data into Azure? It's completely free to customers. There's no paperwork to fill out. Anybody who's moving data to Azure is eligible to use the program. So that can be the customer themselves, or any consultants or solutions integrators or service providers, anybody like that. And then all of the documentation is just available at this aka.ms link, Azure Storage Migration Docs. So you can get an overview of the program, you can see how it works, all those kinds of great things. It's kind of the perfect offer, right? Like everybody looks at an offer like this and doesn't want to fill out paperwork, doesn't want to have to get it approved, all those kinds of things. And in this situation, literally all you have to do is connect with Komprise through aka.ms/Komprise offer, or go read the documents at aka.ms/Azure Storage Migration Docs, and you can get started. It's very, very easy to do and very, very effective way to get engaged with things.
Yeah, and it's been a great partnership. I mean, you guys have just been great to work with, making it really easy on the customers. Just getting, what we say internally, and we talk to customers about. Our goal is to help you get data moving, and I think it's been a really effective migration approach.
So, yeah, we love it, and we love working with you guys. You're a great partner in the program, and we really do appreciate all the work that you do for our customers.
Awesome. Fantastic. So I want to thanks, Tim, for taking us through that. Definitely stick around, because I want to make sure there's questions and pick your brain on a few of these topics. Just a little bit for folks joining who haven't heard of Komprise. I know there's some on this call that haven't, and others that have been working with us but maybe not as well aware of what we're doing with Microsoft. We are focused 100% on delivering an analytics driven platform for unstructured data management, delivered as a service. We have hundreds of enterprise customers. We're moving petabytes, exabytes of data. We're really well suited for what we call the data heavy industries, data heavy organizations, really heavy file workloads that you need to really optimize and right place, right? So it's really finding the right storage location, the right tier of storage, and ultimately to get most value from that data is what we're all about. So that's just a little bit about Komprise. You can learn more about us at our website, komprise.com. What we want to talk about today, I mean, there's a lot of different use cases for our platform. We talk about being analytics driven, being able to get visibility across your data and understand everything you need, as one of our customers referred to it as the why of the data, right? Why is it what it is? Why is it where it is? Where should it be? So there's a broader conversation about data management and data migration as well, which Tim mentioned. Today, we're going to focus on data tiering, and I'm excited to let you all know is that we have introduced a new solution on the Azure Marketplace called Komprise Intelligent Tiering for Azure. And that's really what we're going to spend some time talking about. It's a new solution that you can go get started and learn about on the marketplace. And maybe just Tim, just a little plug from on the marketplace and how you're seeing adoption there. Anything in terms of how your customers work with marketplace solutions you can speak to?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the marketplace is a great way to get access to the software that you need to enhance your cloud experience. And partners that deploy on the marketplace have been tested and are working well with Microsoft. So it's just a really solid way to go about getting the right software for your needs.
Awesome. So there's two primary use cases that we're going to spend time digging into and showing you in today's webinar. One is around, maybe it's the obvious one, a hybrid cloud situation. With Komprise, what you can do is you can analyze across environments and then tier from any on-prem file to and NAS to Azure. And that could be, you see the list here. It could be, NetApp, Dell Isilon, VNX, PowerScale, Nutanix, all these NAS solutions we're going to give you visibility into, and then help you tier that data to the right place in Azure. So that's kind of the hybrid cloud use case that you're going to see in Steve's demonstration. And typically, what you see with Komprise is we'll help you understand how much of your data is cold, and we're going to help you understand, by cold we mean not being used, and you can set the definition of that by policy, and then automate that movement to the right place at the right time. And we'll talk about our transparent tiering capabilities in the demonstration. The second one is really interesting, and we're seeing a lot more of this as more heavy file and object workloads are in the cloud, particularly file workloads. Being able to have an ongoing policy-driven data management solution to not only move data to the cloud, but then optimize, and as Tim mentioned, kind of that cost avoidance benefit by making sure it's in the right tier and has the right level of access set as part of that policy. So that's what you're going to see in the demonstration. And I'm just going to, and we'll come back and talk a bit about some of the approaches. But Steve, I think it's a good time for you to just take over and drill into what this looks like, and then we can have a conversation around it.
Very definitely. Thank you, Darren. And you can see the director console now, correct?
We can.
Fantastic. So yeah, I mean, that initial question, customers, as they want to get data into Azure, where's a good starting point? What's an easy place? And that is done by an analysis. And that's something that Komprise does quite quickly and quite conveniently for you too. And I'll show you what that looks like. So really, that initial question of what data could be tiered. So one of the first things that you want to do is go out and identify your systems. And as Darren mentioned earlier, there's a number of platforms that we support. We've certified and blessed, but we are standards focused. So anything that offers an NFS or SMB interface, we can go and connect to and start to analyze those systems and take a look at them. And then I've got some pre-done ones here that are already set up for you. And so once you go out and talk to that system, we'll go out and query that system and find out, and we'll get a list of all the various shares that are available for that system. And it's this point when you choose enable share that Komprise actually begins to take a look at the system, starts to crawl the directory tree and collect that information. And this is the information that we're really looking for, particularly for tiering. How much hot, warm, and cold data do we have in the environment? And the really great thing about Komprise is you can go out and see this information very quickly. You don't have to wait for us to build a database to look at all this, but we can show you this information up front. And we also go on further to give you information about what kind of file data that we're seeing on that system. And you also get the feeling for the age ranges, what's hot, what's warm, what's cold in the environment. And we can see space consumed by file size. So this is really important. If you're looking at tiering, we can see that, what we've got here is big files, and big files take a lot of capacity. So something you would say, yeah, sure. We can also look at it by file count, and we can see that, there's lots of smaller files, more so than there are bigger files, which would make sense as well. And so, yeah, if I am looking at tiering, where would be a good threshold? And we saw earlier, that 10 megabytes or higher was a lot of where the capacity was, and we wouldn't really need to tier the smaller files in the environment. And that kind of helps sets the stage for the tiering part and what we would look at. But you can continue on to have other discussions. You can go out to the top owners of the space, ask them what they're doing with the data, how much it changes, what it means to them, top groups, top directories, top shares, etc. So we give you a lot of information up front about the environment, as well as some health information about the environment too. Do we have things like orphan data in the space? Do we have files we can't access, invalid characters, or a bunch of other things? So very quickly, we give you an ability to take a look and learn more about your environment, what you have, and look at the usage for the space. But the next question is, what could I tier to? So we've identified some data here to tier. Where would we send that data? And that's as easy as coming over to the target section and adding in the Azure systems that we can tier to. So you see we have Azure Hot, Cool, and Archive for the blob technologies, and we can do some tiering to NAS platforms as well. So that's very convenient for you too. So now we've set those parts up. So we have identified some data, or at least we see that we have some hot, warm, and cool data. Let's drill in some more and see actually what kinds of data there is and how much data that would be. And it's as easy as coming over here to specifying a group. And I've pre-done some groups. So what we've done here is identified a couple of shares that I've put into a group. And where we do that is over here on the editing for the plan editor. So here's the couple of shares I put in. This might be remote offices, as it says. It might be a particular group or business unit or a set of professors or something. So we can identify them, we identify the shares, and we can choose to look at information by age. And as you see, if I move my age to the right or to the left, how much data that represents is updated on our little heat map here on the right. So now at 2 years or older, we see that that would be about 23% of the data. We go to 1 year, we see that moves to about 50% of the data that could be tiered. If we go to 6 months, it shows up to be about 75% of the data that could be tiered, or 70%. And to be honest with you, what we really see in the real world is that most customers have somewhere between 70 to 80% of the data is cold data that nobody's accessed in over a year. Now, the next question is, I've kind of figured out how much data there is. We talk also about some savings that you could have for this. So the next part is, how much could I save by doing some tiering? And let's come to this little edit cost model. And this is where you can put in your current storage costs for your hardware systems on-prem today. Maybe we're doing DR between the systems and some software to do the DR for them. So to own and protect that data, think of what you spent for purchasing the equipment, the service contracts over the years, and the actual amount of real data on the system today, and divide those numbers out for terabytes per year. And this turns out to be about $1,600 a terabyte per year, or that works out to about 15 cents a gigabyte per month for keeping that data on-prem. If we were to look at tiering, say, to Azure Cool, that's 0.004 cents a gigabyte per month, and that works out to about $50 a terabyte per year. So a little bit of money for Komprise to move the cold data over, figure about a 10% egress cost fee, that works out to about $130. So just looking at the math of those two numbers, there's a 91% difference in those two cost values for keeping data. So let's carry that one step farther and apply that to the actual data that we've identified for the environment. And so this is a really cool part of Komprise, is I like to come down here to the 1 year mark, and it's easy to see we're growing at about 20%, or in this case, 19.88%. To keep all the data on-prem at that number that we typed in, it would be $1.5 million to keep all this stuff there. And that's the whole data sets for those two shares. If we were to take the data and move some of that, or have built an infrastructure where we moved that to the cloud, what's cold, then it would have been about 800,000 on-prem and about 63,000 to cover the Komprise and cloud costs for that. So right here you see we've got about an $880,000 mixed hybrid solution, or a $1.6 million solution on-prem. That alone is a 50% savings in looking at what we could return back to the company over time for like a TCO or an ROI in the environment. So we see that definitely tiering can help save the company on their storage budget and their numbers. We can defer expansions because we freed all the space for their environment as well. And so now, we like tiering, but what about end user access? So if we do send this data off to the cloud, what happens for our end users? And Komprise has two modes for that work out really well. One is that we can leave behind a symbolic link for the environment. And a symbolic link is just a window shortcut. So basically, if a customer were to go to their directory folder, they would see their hot data is the full files. They double click on them, they would open up. They would see the files that would have been archived, moved over as a symbolic link. And if we actually go into properties here, it opens in the other window. We see that there's a director that brings them to Komprise with what we call the Komprise access address, the Komprise, the source of target identifier, and the operating system knows how to follow that. So the big thing is we don't have to load any clients. We don't have to do anything special on the customer side. They see their data as they always have. So there's no outage window. We can move the data quietly in the background for them, and they still have full access over the years and over the time to their data. It's just now the company has some on-prem and some in the cloud. If they would like, we also have the ability to not leave a link behind at all, but move the data off. A lot of times this pays out in the legal environment and things too. So once we've done that, we know our end users still have access. So the next is we've built up our plan. We're pretty good with it. So we're done editing it. And then we can just go activate to launch and start moving that data off to Azure and putting it into the blob pool, in this case, Azure Cool. So now we're actually starting to take advantage of all that, and we can see the progress through here. And this is something that runs on a regular beat. By default, it's once every 7 days, but you can set the cycle for how long you want us to investigate. So the first one's going to move a lot, but the following weeks, it's just looking for the deltas and the change in the environment. So once I've moved this data, I got a couple of choices. I can look at a transfer summary report, or we also have this report up here for what we call showback. So if you do charge, customers by the space that they use and consume, then you can come into here and select the share that you want to take a look at, in which case, we'll look at this NetApp sales one here, and we'll look at the information. And what we'll see in this, although, we need a little more time, but what we'd see is how much data is on-prem versus how much data is in the cloud, and what the costs associated with them were for the different platforms. So we see we have some total data tiered, data not yet tiered yet, the pricing, the architecture, the value of those things. So you have this full report that you can show to generate and give to management to show the savings that you're getting from all this tiering and everything too. So one last question is, what if I want to move from on-prem to cloud? So we started some tiering. We worked with that NetApp system and sales, and now we want to move that to Azure NetApp files in the cloud. Well, Komprise can move that for you as well with the regular migration process. And what we'll do is, as we see the symbolic links and things, we'll make those translations as well. So now you have your hot data moved and placed onto the NetApp files in the cloud. You have your cold data sitting on Azure Cool, and they're still connected, and your end users still have that full access, and they're still continuing on to work and process from there. So one last question that we get all the time is, so we've moved this cold data over to Azure Cool. Can I do anything with the data that's sitting over there? And the answer for us is yes, you can. When we write data over to those tiering systems, you have the choice to leave it in what we call native format. So it's written as a blob, as an object in the space, and you're able to, if you've got the permissions and the rights, you can actually go in and see that data and work with that data, say put a copy of it somewhere else for some AI or ML, or you could even go on to take your plan here, and you can not only use move to tier, but you can also use copy functionality, put a copy somewhere. It's not showing up for me at the moment here since I got an active plan. Or I can use it to confine space to kind of round up data to be deleted in the environment too. So we're giving you the ability to help understand what you want, figure out your TCO and ROI for what you want to move, click right into moving the data and placing it there, and giving you reports to see that data and see that information, and to be able to get into that very quickly and very easily, and putting the right data at the right place at the right value. So hopefully that gives you a good overview and a quick review of what you can do tiering wise. And again, all this can be done on-prem, or it can be done in the cloud for you as well. Darren, any thoughts?
Great overview. I thought I'd ask you, Tim. I mean, that last point that Steve made, often, the folks at Microsoft are really interested in that, the fact that the data is native and available to really take advantage of in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to that and kind of you've heard on that, or any use cases?
Absolutely. It's one of the key requests that we have from our customers as we talk about managing data and moving data around. It's really critical that the data lands in Azure Blob as an actual object. So if the file name on the NAS is foo.txt, if we tier it up to blob, it ends up as foo.txt in the blob storage as well, because then you can point any of our built-in services at that blob bucket or the container and take advantage of the data that's in there. If the data gets obfuscated at all, so if it's not the original file name, if it's not the original file date, then you lose so much of that content, and you have to find a way to kind of access it through indirect means, right? So this is hugely powerful and very, very valuable for our customers.
Fantastic. And there you can see some of the services in this slide. So Steve, maybe just summarize, there's the hybrid use case and the cloud lifecycle management use case. You want to just kind of summarize these for folks, just to kind of do a quick review?
And Darren, my apologies. I've got the little spinning wheel here on my screen. So give me 1 second.
I do too, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Hopefully people are seeing my screen. This slide is the hybrid cloud use case. So you point it at any cloud NAS or on-prem NAS, the analysis, hot, cold data and costs, you set policies, automatically tier by policy. And as we talked about, no changes to users and apps, native Azure data access, and then significant cost savings. The second use case is hybrid cloud.
There we go, Darren. We're back now. Try and back a slide up.
All right.
Oh, nope, it goes back to the spinning wheel. Go forward again. My apologies.
All right.
Yeah, so the very similar diagrams between the two. It's just the difference is in the lower left, we're working with data that's on-prem and being able to get data moved into Azure. And the great thing is, like we've mentioned, being in Azure, you can use your other Azure services and things to work with the data, work with what's there to find new avenues, new values. I mean, the whole reason we're saving all this is because of potential savings and return to the company. So let's get it somewhere where we can find those savings and find that value for them. And then maybe once we've moved it there, or if we decide to transition to the cloud, let's position the data up as we have right here. So, very easily, or if you've got, systems up there that you have data sitting on today and don't quite know what's there, it's very easy to put Komprise in place. Just, we're an all software solution, put in a virtual machine. We can analyze that space very quickly. So half an hour to deploy. Within a half an hour, you can start looking at what was saying in the demo environment for data types, analysis, usage. And as you see, you can very quickly move through that into setting policies and automatically move into tiering data. So this isn't, a very laborious process. We're not requiring you to change any business procedures and stuff too, because again, the end users have those symbolic links. They still see their data and still work with it as they always have. Same for backup packages and other packages as well.
And so we got a good question, Steve. Just to clarify, can I use Komprise for just sending cold data to Azure, but keep hot data on-prem? Also, can we create a policy like keep some data always on-prem, for example, CAD or CAM files or private files?
Yeah, very definitely. And that
might even show that, pop back into demo or just talk through it, whatever is best for you.
Certainly, yeah. Let me see if I can share the screen again real quick. Yeah, so yeah, that's the big thing is, and as you saw in the heat map here, this is really identifying the cold stuff. A big design goal and criteria of Komprise was not to impact any particular hot data. So we're not putting anything in the hot data path. We're reading the NAS systems like any other end users, looking for this cold data, moving it, and then replacing that with the symbolic links. We do the data validations. You got report logs for all that sort of stuff. So hot and warm stay on-prem, and the end users still have direct access to all that. It's not going through Komprise. And then when we go to do editing plans, let me go and let me choose cancel. Let me stop. Let me do this. Show you this. So yeah, we do have the ability to set up exclusions in the environment and discard changes and stop the plan. Stop the plan. And you see down here in the background with exclude files. This is where we can come in and exclude by file size. We can exclude by directory as well in the environment. So that allows you to be able to to choose what you're wanting to exclude in the environment. At the moment, because I've already started some of this, it's hiding a few of the choices that we have. But yes, you do have the ability to select a little more finely. But we even have a more granular tool in what we have with deep analytics.
I was thinking you might go there, Steve. So yeah, let's talk about the deep analytics for a minute.
Yeah, not to take too much time, but if you do right-click and properties on your File Explorer, you'll see things like directory path, file name, modified types, extensions, all this sort of information through here. We can pull into an Elastic database and give you the ability to really query on this and drill into this information. For example, let's go look for binary files that are out there in the environment and see we got about 5 million of them. I can continue doing this querying and putting in, names, extensions, what I'm looking for, and these can be partials, these can be exact amounts, things like that. Or if I'm not really certain what I'm looking for, I can use these little charts down below here to say, let's look at binary data by top owners, and maybe Mr. Rose is leaving the company. So let's go see his. So now we've got down to 400,000 files, and maybe let's look at this particular, or maybe Mr. Rose is just moving locations. So maybe we take the data that he has on this particular SMB share. So now we've narrowed it down to 34,000 files, and we can start to get a view of what some of those files look like through the UI. We can see the top 1,000 of them. We can see the top 10,000 through an export, or we can API to see them all. But now that we've identified them, we can come along and save this query as Mr. Rose's engineering. So I'll just type in Rose here for right now, and we'll save it off. And so now what we've done, we set up a query. I could even go on further to tag Mr. Rose's data and come up with our own tag values. So I could do like binary, and then the value would be Rose, and we have that data too. So we can work with both queries and tags. But we can take this query now, come over to the plan. And as I said, maybe Mr. Rose is leaving the company. So we will do a filter. Let's turn this one off. We'll come down to confine and say, use a deep analytics query to be selective about it. And we'll choose Mr. Rose's data, and we'll put that into the Komprise trash folder. So now when I go and run this plan, we'll find that data on those systems and put it in a trash folder so you can get it cleaned up. Or another even cooler thing is to put it onto, say, on Azure Files, maybe where he's going to run a cloud application to look for some molecular thing or a neutron or whatever. We can put it up in the cloud. He can scale all that performance, get all that. And again, we'll keep feeding it as we run this program over regular times. So here's where we can feed AI and ML systems with data for that environment. So in this case, I can choose to send all the data there to that particular system. And we've even got something we call smart workflows, where we can link this in with some AI scripting to put data there, launch the cloud application, do the processing, collect the tags, and put the tags back into the analytics part. So I give long-winded answers, my apologies, but here's where we go even farther to give you more control and granularity for putting the right data in the right place for its value. And maybe when they're done, they just turn this off, they stop this, they delete the data, they got their results, and they move on their way.
Yeah, I mean, deep analytics, there's so much power there, not only for the classic users of Komprise, but increasingly we're seeing with certain profiles being able to be set, certain users can do their own queries, right? So I just think there's so much potential for and power with deep analytics. And as you mentioned, the smart data workflows really start to tie it to other systems and services. Hey, Steve, we got another question. It's another good one. It's great to get some of these questions coming in. And as we do that, I'm just going to launch this slide to talk about some of our customers with Microsoft. But this question is about architecture. Is Komprise simply installed on a local physical or virtual server with network and appropriate share permissions to the filter being analyzed? What database does Komprise use to store the metadata?
Yeah, so Komprise is an all software solution, and we have the basic components are three, really. There's the director console itself, which is what I was just showing you, and it's just an admin console, and we provide that as a service to customers. It really, saves you the resources, the deployment, the scaling, the backing up, and everything else. We'll take care of all that stuff for you. Plus, we can handle support and updates for you and other things like that too. So it becomes very convenient. Then there's the part that we put on-prem. Komprise never stores your data. We just move it from one of your storage systems to another of your storage systems, and it's moved over your network. So the observers and proxies are the on-prem part. The observers are the managers, the brains. They do this analysis and scaling. And we don't have a SQL database or anything like that we have to build. So again, that's part of the speed and the performance and part of our architecture of being a shared nothing, highly scalable architecture. When we do that analysis crawl, what we're doing is sorting data into those various buckets for those various usage graphs that you see in that plan analysis part I showed you up front, very beginning. We do have the ability to collect that other information for deep analytics that we send to the cloud and put into a big elastic database where you can build that query set, as I was just showing you a second ago. And so you have that as an option for you to be able to leverage the deep analytics part. And again, we're not storing any of the data. We're just taking the metadata, the summary information, and putting that so that you can query and work against it. So now, to deploy a virtual machine, all we really need is some basic network information. So we usually do a quick 30-minute deployment call where we go over that, the resources, the parts. And then if you've got all that ready for us, we can do a deployment in about 45 minutes to getting 2 observers and 2 proxies. And the proxies move SMB data for us. That's all they do. And then we can go right into analysis and go right into migrations, tiering, whatever you need from there. So a very flexible architecture. We can deploy as many observers as proxies as you need, and we don't charge for those. So that's totally up to you and the architecture environment. So this is how we're able to get from, say, 250 terabytes for a customer size up to many, many petabytes. And we have some that are in the 3 digits for petabyte ranges. So it's very scalable infrastructure and works across multi-sites too. So if a customer does have multiple locations around the country or around the world, you can still manage all that through the one console. So I didn't really get a chance to show you that either.
Good stuff. So I just wanted to, people have been looking at the slide. I mean, good questions and keep them coming. Kind of the common stories, right? State and local government, we're seeing a lot of adoption there. With I think Azure has a very strong presence in that sector. So it's just some great stories. It's on our website. By the way, on terms of architecture, you can go to komprise.com/architecture and get download some white papers and understand what runs where. But yeah, these are really cool stories about successful organizations who have done a migration and then started tiering and seeing ongoing data management benefits. And I wanted to just ask you, Tim, like, are you typically, is it common with the customers you're working with to get going with the AMP program, get going with migration, and then a tiering conversation happens next, or what are you seeing, or are they already tiering and then they start migrating more? Any trends you're seeing in terms of your customers and adopting tools like Komprise?
I would say migration has been kind of a universal constant through my entire career and certainly through my time here at Microsoft. Tiering is something that we're seeing more and more customers get interested in, just because they really do want to preserve this older data. They want to keep the data where that they have generated, but they want to keep it at the lowest cost tier possible, so that they don't have to pay more than they intend to spend. And that's just not a feature that our first party services really offer right now on Azure. And then also, it's not a feature that even third party storage providers on prem offer in a method that lets you use that data once you tier it up. So like oftentimes, NetApp and Dell and all the big storage providers, they can let you tier data to an object storage system, but the data that's tiered to the object storage system isn't really usable once it's there. It's just a lower cost place to store the data. So we really are seeing tiering become something that most customers are very interested in having a conversation about, and a space where people are really interested in exploring.
Awesome. Cool. Well, just to wrap, there's lots, as I mentioned, of content available on different websites. We did a series of posts on the Azure Storage blog that really summarizes why, what is tiering, what are your choices, and some of the benefits of this new solution, Komprise Intelligent Tiering for Azure. So that's all available. I encourage you to go, check out those blog posts. They've been pretty popular. Lot of views, a lot of people reading and trying to understanding, I think, their options. Let me ask you one more question, Tim. I mean, do you find that, And maybe Steve too. Like we use a tool called ACE, which is it kind of helps assess a customer's environment before even data starts moving. Do you find there's still a lot of confusion? Like people thought, hey, this would be easy. Now what do I do? Like where do you feel people are on this sort of overall maturity curve or kind of cloud migration journey? Maybe it's specifically to file data.
I think I'll jump in and say that I think file migration, it always sounds fairly easy when you start it. Like, hey, I'm going to copy, this, terabyte of data from here to the cloud. The devil's always in the details. So making sure that you move the data and keep it in sync, and then cut the application over if there's an application that's important that's involved in it. Making sure that the data lands in the right spot, making sure that the WAN link and all the other services that you use inside of Azure, around DNS and name resolution and authentication and all that kind of stuff, making sure all that works. It can be a little bit more challenging, which is why we really like our customers to work with our partners like Komprise, right? Like you guys have the experience and the know-how to help customers really understand how to do this, and your tool makes it really much simpler to do than what a lot of the traditional tooling would offer.
Awesome. Steve, anything you've seen there in terms of the what they thought it would be and what it is when it comes to the cloud journey?
Yeah, quite often customers, they're working with their storage subsystems today. Performance is great. Life is good. They're communicating to their devices and applications in the cloud, and that all looks great and looks good. But when you start to move data over that WAN, that's really putting a load on it that it hasn't seen before. And that's where you can start to hear it groan and creak and those sorts of things. And that's where we've implemented this ACE, this assessment of customers' environment, to be able to identify some of those things before we jump in. And that's really a big thing for Komprise in general, is bring all those issues out into the light before you start moving data. Because once you do take that share and click and say execute on migrate, everybody's watching and waiting, right? So by using that analysis tool, by using this ACE assessment for the network topology and things like that, we can make sure that when we go and start moving that data, it's optimally tuned to happen quickly. And then we've even built in some other functionality to be able to address those corner cases, like really small files with hypertransfer. That's a lot of chatty, a lot of network usage for those things, using something like robocopy and things. We've been able to compartmentalize and packetize those and establish a secure channel to move that SMB data super fast over the WAN and the distance too. So there's additional challenges beyond just clicking and dragging, saying we're going to copy and drop here.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge and wisdom, insights. And as you can see here, the links are available, and we look forward to helping you on your journey to Azure and getting maximum value once you're there. So have a great day, and thanks again. I don't know, any final words?
No, thanks, Darren. I appreciate the offer, and it was really good to talk with you, and always good to see you, Steve.
All right, guys.
Great to see you.
Cheers, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.